The way we lead impacts the way people live. This world needs, truly, human leadership.
I have a healthy respect for competition, but I think what we crave is collaboration, co-laboring, which is what truly human leadership is. Co-laboring, laboring together, collaboration, realizing that, you and I we're in this together. And this is not, you get to win and I lose. No, we all win. And it's got to be a win-win world now. We just have to go there.
I'm Brent Stewart, your host. Thanks for listening. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller. Find our podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. Our friend Lynne Twist is a global visionary and pro-activist committed to creating a future that is environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just. She is the co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance, the founder of the Soul of Money Institute, and she is also on Conscious Capitalism's board of directors. You've heard Lynne on our podcast before. Over the past 40 years, she's worked with more than 100,000 people in 50 countries, as well as with many organizations and companies, inspiring them to expand how they see themselves and empowering them to express their commitment and creativity. Lynne has written a new book, Living a Committed Life, Finding Freedom and Fulfillment in a Purpose Larger Than Yourself. You can learn more about it on Lynne's website, soulofmoney.org. It came out of a conference she spoke at many years ago, which is where she first met our CEO, Bob Chapman. Her friend Jack Canfield, the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, encouraged her to share her many stories gained from her decades as a global thought leader, working to end hunger and poverty, protect the Amazon rainforest, empower women's leadership, and transform people's relationships with money. All put together in this book, these stories demonstrate how a commitment to a purpose larger than yourself can enliven and empower you. It will enable you to see new possibilities, turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, engage in effective action, and draw on resources and capacities you may not know you have. So on this podcast, Lynne and I have a wide-ranging conversation on the nature of purpose, the importance of purpose in business, and how it can help us turn this world from me-centric to we-centric. As you'll read in her book, one of Lynne's mentors was the noted engineer, architect, inventor, scientist, writer, systems theorist, philosopher, and futurist Buckminster Fuller. And we're going to start out with Lynne talking about what she learned from this great mind. I think it sets the stage for the rest of our conversation.
I knew about Bucky and wanted to hear him speak and had some wind of his ideas, really, the geodesic dome he invented and other things. And I went to hear him speak, and I just was blown away by him. And I mean, really blown away, like I couldn't even function after hearing him speak. I was so moved. And I wasn't moved by the content because I didn't even understand it. And that's the honest to God truth. It was, and way over my head. He had a utility table in front of him where he used to talk about the intellectual integrity of the universe. And he used models. He had a tetrahedron and an icosahedron on a table. I didn't know what he was talking about. That's honestly the truth. But at one point, he walked out in front of the table and looked right at the audience. There were 2,000 people. And everybody, I think, thought he was looking at them, but I was sure he was looking at me. And he said, now I'm going to say the most important thing I've ever said or ever will say. And I thought, oh, my God, I've got to understand this one. If I don't understand anything in this whole lecture, I'm going to understand this one thing. And so I sat up straight, like you do, and adjusted my posture and was really ready for him to, lay it on us. He put his hand out like this and he said, humanity has crossed a very important threshold. And that threshold changes everything. And we won't see the result of it for a long, long time, but it's happened. And we've crossed it in the last 50 to 100 years. I want to say that because Bucky always talked about huge swaths of time. And he said, we now live in a world, this is 1976, where we're doing so much more with so much less. That we live in a world now where there is clearly, without question, enough for everyone, everywhere, to have a healthy and productive life. And we will continue doing so much more with so much less. That is the direction, the trajectory of our science, of our technology, of our genius. That is the direction of the human species, the human family. So it's absolutely positively clear that there is enough for everyone everywhere to have a healthy and productive life. And when he said the word enough, sufficient resources, there is enough. I had a Kundalini thing go up my spine. I started to cry. I didn't even understand what he was talking about still, but I was like, my hands started to perspire. I knew something had been said that went right into my heart. And then he said, that means we shift the paradigm from a paradigm of lack or not enough or insufficiency or scarcity, where you make it at my expense or I make it at your expense because there's not enough for both of us. That's a you or me paradigm. We shift from a you or me paradigm to a paradigm of enough or sufficiency, which is a you and me paradigm, where you and I can both make it at no one's expense. So he said we go from a you or me paradigm to a you and me paradigm. But he said, then here's the really important part. He said, enough is not an amount of anything. Sufficiency is not an amount of anything. It's a way of being in the world. And it will take 50 years for us to realize a shift in the way of being, that there is enough for everyone everywhere to have a healthy and productive life. And in somewhere around 50 years, we'll start to get it, because all the institutions of humankind are embedded in a you or me understanding of the world, a scarcity view of the world, a mindset of scarcity. The economy is designed from a you or me understanding of the world. Governance is rooted in a you or me understanding of the world. Education is rooted in a you or me understanding of the world. And then he said, religion is rooted in a you or me understanding of the world. It will take 50 years for all of our major institutions, and he named many of them, to become so dysfunctional and start to collapse, and we won't be able to fix them anymore, that we will have to create a whole new set of institutions and context based on a you and me understanding of the world. And he predicted that would happen in about 50 years. He said that in 1976. Guess what time it is now? As the governance dissolves in shambles and divisiveness, as the economy starts to be completely dysfunctional, as education is dysfunctional, the healthcare system, and the climate crisis, it's in many ways he prophesied the kind of crises, the epic crises we're living in right now, and said that this breakdown was predictable and will be the source of a total and complete breakthrough. So when I say, what did I learn from Buckminster Fuller? I learned about sufficiency and enough, which I realize is the radical truth about life. It's different than abundance. It's enough, which is being met with the universe, with what you need and want, which then can become abundance, but not from lack, from enough. And I learned about the you or me and the you and me paradigm. And it really was the source of the work I did on ending world hunger with the Hunger Project. Buckminster Fuller and Werner Erhard, who founded the EST work, which is called Landmark now, they met shortly after this because I helped orchestrate that meeting. And out of that meeting, out of those two geniuses talking to each other, the commitment to end world hunger was born, which became the Hunger Project, which became where I worked and where I gave a huge chunk of my life. So that was a long answer to that question, but Bucky was just and still is absolutely seminal. And then the other thing is that he coined the phrase, a little individual can make a difference that impacts all humanity. And he did that because that was his life. He was going to, he actually contemplated suicide at age 27 when he was a failure in his business and he couldn't feed his family. But then he said to the universe, if I'm a throwaway human being, maybe rather than throw myself away, I will make myself an experiment, a laboratory. Can one human being, ordinary human being, make a difference that impacts all of humanity in a positive way. And so he lived with that commitment. And so he, in real answer to your question, was the first person I encountered that I realized was living a committed life, that he'd turned his life over to absolute and total service to see if he could really make a difference. And so he was a huge impact on me.
Your book is a number of stories, people that you've encountered in your life, people that have affected you. And Bucky clearly was one person. And I hear everything that you were talking about there. I hear a lot of your work and what you learned from him. But that probably was one of the stepping stones into you finding your purpose, which is a lot of what your book is about. So tell me what it took for you to find your purpose and how important that was for you.
I feel I was very fortunate, actually, kind of in the right place at the right time. That's not helpful for everybody, so I probably shouldn't even say that. But I really do believe that that's kind of what happened to me. But I also was paying attention. And I think you find your purpose, like the universe wants us to find our purpose, because I think we're here. I think you and I and the people listening to this were born now because we have a contribution to make, that there's something unique about you, unique about me, unique about every single person, that they're here to contribute. I believe that life is given to us so that we can give it. And along the way, I've been fortunate to meet people who have encouraged me to realize that I have a unique contribution to make. And if I can get in flow with that Dharma, my life will flourish and I will make the difference that's mine to make. And so the how is sort of hard to answer, because it's a lot of recognizing how blessed you are and having that framework to realize that life is not happening to you. You're not the victim of life. It's happening for you. That even events that are tragic, like the death of my father when I was 14, which is a horrible blow to our family. There was no warning. He had a heart attack, suddenly died at age 50, very young. My mother was 46. I was 14. I'm the third of 4 kids. We were just like, oh my God. One night we all went to sleep. Next morning, we all woke up except my dad, and everything revolved around him. So it was a huge shock. However, when I really look back at my life, losing my father at that age kind of took me on an inner journey that has served me since in great ways. That's when I really began my inner life. I didn't know where to go, but to go within. And so if you see that life's happening for you, not to you, even the tragic things, even the death of a father, or a bankruptcy, or a divorce, or an illness, you can see that you're being schooled and you're being led to your committed life. That's what I think is really happening for people. But if we think we're the victim of something, then life is a bummer, But if we pay attention, the signs, I think they're everywhere, and it often is what breaks your heart is your life's work. What you can't stand or tolerate about the world might be what it's time for you to resolve. When I think about Bob Chapman and his seeing the pain and suffering in corporations, that he couldn't stand it. And he became one of the great heroes and sheroes of our time to transform the corporate culture to be truly human. In my case, just knowing that children were hungry, that they didn't have enough to eat, that they couldn't live, that their parents couldn't feed them, it's just like, unbearable. And I was also a follower of Mother Teresa, as many people were, whether you're Catholic or not. You couldn't help but notice there was a living saint walking this earth. So, there were lots of signs for me, and Buckminster Fuller and Werner Erhard meeting and coming up with the Hunger Project, a project to end world hunger, was a perfect fit for me. I had 3 little children. I couldn't imagine not being able to feed them. And also I was working very deeply in the work of transformation, and the approach of the Hunger Project is not aid or development, but transformation. And that was my sweet spot. So it showed me the path. And then later in life, after doing that for 25 years, I got a very incredible opportunity, and really I'll call it a call, to by indigenous peoples of the Amazon, to work with them on preserving the sacred headwaters of that precious ecosystem. And that became the next chapter of my life. But I was paying attention, I think that's what I want to say, to the signs, knowing that my life was here to be given. And that context of life is given to us, and it's our privilege to give it to that which wants to happen, wants to come through us, comes from being awake, I think, and being awakened by wonderful people like Buckminster Fuller, like Werner Erhard, the EST training and the landmark work. Also, being really deeply influenced by Brother David Stendhal-Ross, the great Benedictine monk, who is the living icon of gratefulness, meeting people like Bob Chapman. I'm just aware, and I think everybody can be if they just realize the signs are everywhere. Even the pandemic happened for us, maybe not to us, and showed us ways to reboot, rethink, reimagine, revitalize, renew our lives. Even though it was painful and horrible for so many people, and people got sick, I got sick, people lost loved ones, I lost people I knew. At the same time, if we see life as happening for us, not to us, the signs become clear and the path begins to open.
One of the things I know that you have talked about before, and certainly in your interactions with our company and with Bob, is purpose in business. Let's talk a little bit about that for a second. What do you think business role in all this is, and what is the impact of businesses realizing their purpose?
If you look at history, there's different periods where the largest and most important institution rises up and becomes what defines things, like the monarchy way back, and then the church way back, and then now it's business. Business is the largest, and then it was government, but now business is bigger than government, and business is the largest institution on earth, and therefore, from great privilege and great opportunities and great success becomes great responsibility. And I think that, businesses were originally chartered way back in the British Empire. They had to have a purpose or they didn't get incorporated. They had to have a purpose that served the greater good. They had to. You couldn't incorporate unless you had that. And that's really the way business was formulated originally, as far as I know, incorporating, embodying a purpose that is for the good of humanity. And once it started to all be about money and profit and shareholders and all that stuff and quarterly returns, we lost that central theme, that through line. And because the world now is demanding that business step up and step out and step into the great challenges of our time, we need to recover that through line and realize that most people, this is what Bob preaches, and what you preach too, that most people are living inside of a business institution of some kind. And to really nourish their lives and to have them be nourished and to have then the company be of benefit to the world, it absolutely must have a purpose that's greater than profitability and earnings per share and all the stuff that gets measured. And we need to reboot everything, especially business. And I love that Bob and Barry-Wehmiller is doing that in all the programs that you do for companies. I'm on the board of Conscious Capitalism, which was founded by Raj Sisodia, who wrote the book with Bob. And as I see companies become more and more dedicated to a purpose larger than themselves, I feel so encouraged. I'm working right now in conversation with big companies like Amazon.com, like Google, like the Walton Company, to engage them in the Amazon rainforest. I mean, Amazon.com, it's their namesake, for God's sake. And the Amazon rainforest is getting close to absolute collapse. Will be curtains for not just the species that live in the Amazon. The Amazon is the source of our climate system. So, and what better way to save the Amazon than take the power of the largest consumer company on earth and focus a lot of its attention and intention towards preserving the Amazon rainforest, the source of our climate system, the source of life, really. So that's an example of, and a challenge that I'm making to that company. But I also see in, real estate companies that have made a fortune on real estate, they should is the wrong word, but I invite them to take on the homeless issue. If you're going to make that kind of money and drive up the real estate prices for your own benefit and leave all these people out, then you got to take all those profits and reinvest them for the people that can't afford to live and they're living on the street. You got to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So every business has its shadow that needs to be addressed, I think, by the business itself, so that its soul has integrity. So the integrity of the soul of the company is intact. And I think we're at a time where business now is conscious enough, and the world is at a consciousness enough, and the crises are big enough for business. Business loves big challenges, and business has big muscle, money, power, excellence. I'm in what I call the social profit sector. I don't call it nonprofit because I don't like that name. I don't like to be named by what we're not. I like to be named by what we are, and we generate a social profit, a huge one. And so I challenge business because business has got the excellence and the rigor that the social profit sector that I'm in doesn't have. It also has the money and the clout. Yet the social profit sector doesn't have any of that, or doesn't have enough of that, has taken on the biggest issues in the world. We need to work together. And that's what Bob preaches and teaches. That's what you preach and teach. That's what I'm preaching and teaching. We need to work. We absolutely have to. Business must be on the playing field in a big way and derive its central purpose from the challenges we face as a human community. And then wonderful to make a financial profit, but that's not the purpose of business. That's crazy. And that makes us all crazy. It makes us all crazy. And it makes business do things that are destroying the very life support system on which we depend for profit, not wittingly, not intentionally, but because it's off its original purpose, which is to incorporate a purpose that serves the common good.
What you said something earlier when you were talking about Bucky, and I want to get the phrasing right. We've gotten to the place where it's you or me. Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah, well, it's a scarcity mindset that there's not enough to go around and somebody's going to be left out. A more is better mindset, and this is just the way that it is mindset that haunts us, so that we operate in a you or me. Either you make it at my expense or I make it at your expense. That's the paradigm we've been living in for a long, long time. And it's possible now, he said, and I agree, that you and I can both make it at nobody's expense. There's enough for all of us. There's enough food on this planet. There is enough water. There is enough food. I know these things. I know we're in danger of not having enough food and water. Yes, but that's because of greed, not because of need. Gandhi said there's enough for our need, not for our greed. So we are in a position to take care of everyone everywhere. There's enough food on this planet to feed 12 billion people. We don't have 12 billion, we have 7.6. So we're in a time and a space where if we can reframe, recontextualize, reboot our mindset, so we see that there is enough for everyone, and everyone is on our watch, and it's an all hands on deck time, then we'll make it. Not that we won't make it, but I have full faith in the human condition and the human family. But I can't remember your question. Am I answering it?
Well, I wanted to get that phrasing straight first, but when you talk about that you or me paradigm that Bucky had spoke about, that's something that could be part of purpose. And we talk about it at Barry-Wehmiller on the individual level, that trying to change that paradigm could be part of a business's purpose. Are we seeing that happen? Are we there yet? How is that working out right now in terms of trying to change that paradigm?
Well, I wish I could give you a more positive report. If you look at our political landscape in the United States, it's all you or me. I mean, you're terrible and I'm wonderful, or I'm wonderful and she's terrible. And I mean, it's all about you or me. It's all scarcity paradigm. It's all make the other guy or a gal wrong. It's all about positionality, and unfortunately, it's almost like gossip on steroids. If you look at the political ads, I would call it gossip. I would call it absolute total gossip on steroids. I mean, what is going on here? So it's not happening as fast as I would like. Let me put it that way. At the same time, so having said that, at the same time, there's a hunger, a yearning for developing the kind of spiritual soil of our lives, of our country, of our world. And there are people like you, like Bob, like me. There's meditation teachers all over the world. There's yoga. People are doing yoga and meditating, and they're not necessarily going to church like they used to. Maybe that's just not the frame people want anymore, and some are going to church, and God bless them for it. But there's a longing for a care of the soul, as Thomas More would say. And I feel, this is a little bit maybe not on purpose for your particular podcast, but I do feel like the divine feminine, if I can put it that way, is starting to come through everybody, men and women, in a big way, to sort of tone down the patriarchy, the leftover colonialism, the dominator model, I can do it better than you, competitive edge thing, which is, helpful and useful. And my God, yes, you've watched the Olympics and you're proud of people who win, but you're proud of people who beat their own record, really. That's really what they're doing. And being more excellent and using competition for excellence rather than destroying the other guy or gal. So I have a healthy respect for competition, but I think what we crave is collaboration, co-laboring, which is what truly human leadership is. Co-laboring, laboring together, collaboration, realizing that, you and I we're in this together, and this is not, you get to win and I lose. No, we all win. And it's got to be a win-win world now. We just have to go there. And there's a lot of people working on that. You're working on that. I'm working on that. Maybe we're at the margins still, but I know it's the underground waters that are coming up to be the mainstream. The underground waters are longing for a deeper relationship with the soul, a deeper relationship with our humanity, more compassion, more love, more forgiveness, more courage. And, not put competition down. It's produced miracles. But now we're kind of on overdrive. And so there's a prophecy from the Baha'i people. And they say that the bird of humanity has two great wings, a male wing and a female wing. And the bird of humanity has had its male wing fully extended and fully expressed for centuries, while the female wing in the bird of humanity has been somewhat folded in, not yet fully expressed. So the male wing, in order to keep the bird of humanity afloat, has become overdeveloped, overmuscular, and in fact has had to become violent. And so the bird of humanity is flying in circles and has been for several hundred years. And that the first century of the third millennium, that's where we are, first century, third millennium, we're only 22 years into that, in the first century, the third millennium, the prophecy says, the feminine wing, the female wing in all of us, in women and men, will fully express itself in this 100-year cycle. The male wing in all of us can relax a little bit, and the bird of humanity, instead of flying in circles, will soar. And I love that prophecy because it doesn't make masculine wrong and feminine right, and it doesn't do the stuff that sometimes happens right now. But it lets us all realize that, oh my God, we can relax some of this drive and intensity and franticness to beat the other guy or gal, and collaborate with them. And we can relax a little bit on that end of things. And then we can, let this soulfulness, this hunger for meaning, this intense search for purpose, give it more time, more energy, more love, because that's going to have us fly, have us soar. So I think that's what's happening. And it's maybe it's going to take 100 years, but you're contributing to it. I'm contributing to it. It's an all hands on deck world now. And can we be all hands on deck in a way that we're not trying to defeat each other, but we're looking to work together in ways that have everybody win? Like it's heartbreaking to watch the political landscape. People trying to destroy each other instead of saying what they're for. They're only what they're against. It's heartbreaking because I know it's not good for them. They hate it too. Maybe that's the last throes of this competitive thing that's kind of out of control. But I know that the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, the work that many millions and millions of people are doing is the metaphor, a caterpillar at a certain point in its evolution, the imaginal cells begin to find each other and cluster. And if enough of them cluster, they become the genetic directors of the fuzzy little brown thing. And the other cells become the nutritive soup. And the imaginal cells create the absolute miracle of a butterfly. And maybe Bob and you and me and Barry-Wehmiller and the Hunger Project and Pachamama Alliance, my organization, and the Soul of Money Institute and my book, and is part of the imaginal cells making the butterfly. Because who could predict a butterfly from a little brown worm, It's incredible. So I feel we're in an epic, epic, epic time. And I'm so glad to be alive and participate, even though it's painful and difficult and challenging.
Well, you said something earlier. There's a couple things you said earlier, but you were thinking about life happening for us as opposed to life happening to us. And you were also talking about that in respect to the pandemic. And I think one of the things that we've been seeing over the last couple of years in terms of viewing the pandemic as happening for us is the way it's starting to reshape how people are thinking about their work lives and even evaluating their purposes. And instead of going to a company that doesn't care about them, demanding to work for a company that will care about them.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's part of the hope part of this right now, and this changing the you or me paradigm, that people are realizing that they can have a purpose greater than sustenance, working to change that from within the structures and hoping to change the structure because they know what is needed and what can happen.
Well, sometimes, it's darkest before the dawn. I like to think that, God, maybe it's just all this noise that's in the culture and all the social media stuff and all the algorithms that make you believe your ideology is the only one, that you keep getting fed your own stuff deeper and deeper and deeper, and it kind of makes your brain, those little rivulets in your brain, those little ski tracks go deeper and deeper and deeper, we're just caught in all that. I mean, I when I watch, either CNN or Fox News or whoever I watch, I think, what are they talking about? This is like a completely different stream of information than the other guy. And it just keeps reinforcing itself. And if we could broaden our, we should be able to broaden, because we've got the internet. It can tell us everything, except it's oriented now to make us believe our own stuff. Anyway, I agree that people are just leaving situations that don't serve them and going to places where people care. And I love that. I love the migration to companies that make that kind of a difference with their employees, their workers, their team. I love people wanting their companies to have a purpose larger than profit. I love that we're starting to measure, with B Corps and conscious capitalism, things other than the bottom line. The bottom line starts to include the bottom billion on this planet, the bottom billion people, the earth, the other species, I love that that's happening. I want it to happen faster. I'm doing everything I can to accelerate it, and I know you are too. But I love that it is happening, and I think it really is happening. People who are historians, they say we're in the greatest epic transformation effort, transition, that it might even be an evolutionary leap. And that's what I pray for. I think we are in an evolutionary leap. And, it's almost like, this is a wonderful phrase I heard, when the first fish crawled up on land, suddenly elephants and eagles were possible. When you think about that, that's just so cool. What is the fish crawling up on land? Is it Bob and all his beautiful talks and his success and his awards? Is it starting to create an evolutionary leap for business? I pray that it is. Is my book and my work creating evolutionary leap in our relationship with money and life? Are we really ready to take that leap? I think we are. I think people are hungry for it. And it's all kind of like darkest before the dawn. The things are getting so ugly. There's another phrase that I really appreciate from Reverend Michael Beckwith. He says, pain pushes until vision pulls. Pain pushes till vision pulls. I love that because we're in the pain now. But if we can create a vision powerful enough, it'll pull us out of the pain towards a new vision. And I think that's what Bob's work is all about, and your work and my work, and hopefully everybody's work.
Yeah. What is your purpose? What is the purpose of your business? Does it support the you or me paradigm? Or is it a you and me paradigm where you and I can both make it at no one's expense? You can learn more about Lynne Twist. You can learn more from Lynne Twist from her book, Living a Committed Life, Finding Freedom and Fulfillment in a Purpose Larger Than Yourself. You can find that on her website and more about Lynne, soulofmoney.org. And then don't forget to find us and connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller. And you'll find more podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart. Thanks for listening.